Hi everybody, this is Pedro, and today's video I want to talk about something that it was a big insight for me when I first heard it, which has to do with the most important asset that you can ever have as a business owner, right? And there's a lot of conversations around this topic and points of view and stuff like that. And some people say money, of course, probably is the first thing that comes to your mind is money is the most important thing. And of course it's important because first of all that's almost like one of the, if it's not the primary reason, and it shouldn't be the primary reason because money should be the consequence, but it's definitely something very important as a business, because money equals oxygen in a business, right? Because without money you cannot run the business, and it doesn't make any sense, right? So there's that, and that's definitely very important. On the other hand, there's the element of time, because time is finite in this world, right? And it's one of the, if not the most precious thing that we have, because we know that it doesn't last forever, right? And there's of course the personal aspect to all of this, of course. But from a business point of view, I'm not sure who I heard this from, but someone years ago conveyed the idea that the most important thing for business is none of those two things, although they're very important. The most important thing is momentum. And if you think about this, it's actually very true. And looking at my journey as a business owner, it's so true that I cannot tell you how true it is. And maybe you feel it too if you are in business, or if you are thinking about going into business, know that this is definitely something to pay attention to. And the reason is the following. And if you are a business owner, you know exactly what I'm talking about, which is, there's always like these ups and downs in terms of like your mental side of things, because business, it's a little bit of how it goes sometimes, depending on many different factors, of course, your business model, your niche, market conditions, all that kind of stuff. And your mind will also follow these highs and lows, and the highs are really high, the lows are really low, and it's sometimes very challenging from the mental point of view of what that means really to have a business, right? And when it comes to this mental side of things, one of the most challenging, as I said before, is to maintain, although the market can go like this and your business can go like this, is to maintain a more steady line independently of how things go. And that's really, really, really hard, because what happens is when you are building a business or running a business, this steady mental side of things, it's definitely directly related to how much momentum that business has. Because in the beginning of building a business, it's more about effort, right? Most of the cases, which is you need to build things, you need to create some sort of audience or community that likes your ideas, wants to know more about you, engages with your mental models and the way you speak, etc., right? And then the offer itself. And so in the beginning, it's more about like you know effort, right? Which is sort of like as almost like pushing a rock uphill, right? So there's effort there. But then when things start to roll business wise, it's almost like you are at the peak of the hill, and then all it takes is just a little kick on that rock, on that boulder, and then it goes down with no effort. It goes sort of like almost automatic. And that's momentum, right? Because it picks up momentum the more down it goes, right? And business is the same thing. If everything is aligned, if everything is working, it feels really good, almost independently of the revenue part, okay, or the profit part. It's not exactly, detached, obviously, but you know that if this month is not like the best, you know that something else will happen for sure next month, because your business model and stuff like that. And so you're not so in this feast and famine cycle, and you know that there's momentum, because all you see people engaging with your content, you see more people, for example, perhaps booking more calls, engaging with your content, all that kind of stuff. So there's momentum there, and that keeps you going as well. So you don't feel like it's an effort. You feel like you are in the spirit of mission, in the spirit of helping other people. and so that all of this creates momentum. And so the effort almost disappears when that moment happens, right? However, for many different circumstances, if that momentum slows down, it's really, really, really hard, or it can be really, really, really hard to keep up that momentum again to the level that it was. And there's many different factors for this. As I said before, it might be market conditions, might be your niche, that something changed about it, might be you as a person that you're dealing with certain things, whatever, might be the team that is not aligned for whatever reason, right? And so sometimes you take the foot off the gas, or one of these things happen, and that momentum, slows down. And so when that happens, although in the beginning stages you might not feel so bad, because it's the beginning of that loss of momentum, but if this continues, it will be like a way bigger effort, even in comparison with the beginning, to keep that momentum up, because you are tired, you are, you know, you tried like all of these things, ideas wise, they seem not to work. Um, Everything seems and feels like a drag every day. And so the more you go on this vortex, the more that vortex grows, and the less momentum, you will pick up. So everything becomes harder and harder and harder. And that's the reason of why that resonated so much with me when I heard that, because I definitely felt that. I've been in situations like this, in which for many different factors, that momentum slowed down a bit, and then picking up that momentum again, it's such a big effort that I can tell you. So, reasons for this, as I said before, vary depending on many different factors. But choosing the right niche, choosing, even more important than the niche, choosing the right business model, it's like sort of paramount for this momentum to have better chances to keep going organically, without you even like working too much, or don't feel like you're working that much, because the momentum is just there, right? um, One of these things, for example, starts with recurring revenue, for example. I've seen many different businesses of, keep going on the one-off kind of business models, like the client pays one time, that's it. Maybe you even offer, if you are one of these people, maybe you even offer lifetime access to everything that you offer. And so that, can, if it's a good month, if it's a good season, that's great, because there's probably more money coming in. But you almost feel like you need to start from scratch every single month, because there's nothing that equates to momentum, because you always chasing new clients every month, always trying to put your message out there to get new people in every month, and there's nothing that is recurring. And recurring is also, as I said before, equates almost to momentum, or at least gives you a better chance to build that momentum. And if you are in this situation, then you start feeling a little bit overwhelmed with all the things that you need to do. You start getting worried, because the pressure on the financial side perhaps is a little bit bigger. So it's not a good place to be at all. And then all of that kind of stuff will influence what is the energy that you feel to keep doing what you're doing. And so it's a very dangerous place to be, and a very confusing place to be. And I've been there, so I can say this from personal experience. Look, money comes and goes. That's just the reality of the situation, right? Um, Time is definitely finite. It will end. It will not last forever. We're going to be on this planet for a limited amount of time. So, of course, we want to make the most out of it, obviously. But none of this matters if there's no motion, and that's what momentum is motion. Motion, there's a part of it that comes with effort, but there's another part of it which comes with the right strategies to apply and the right actions to apply. That there's some effort, yes, but over time it compounds into momentum. And so how do we solve this, really, if you find yourself in this situation? Well, that's exactly the reason of why systems are so important, right? Systems, again, they have nothing to do, necessarily speaking, with automations. Automations come to fulfill those systems in a, again, hands-off way as much as possible. But without systems, everything, feels like you don't have like a sort of like a, how can I say, a methodology to do all those different tasks that you need to do, whether it's like creating content, sending emails, onboarding clients, offboarding clients, um, getting on calls with clients, fulfill those, exactly the product that you sold to the clients, all that kind of stuff. If there's no systems in place, independently of any automations, everything feels like effort on top of effort on top of effort. And if you're in a good season, as I said before, that's not a problem. The problem is if you're not in a good season, then if you don't have the systems, then it becomes really complicated. So that's why, in my way of seeing my business, the way that I built my business was always very clear on three buckets of systems, coming from marketing, that leads to sales, and then eventually leads to fulfillment. And then if you do a good job at fulfillment, that will inform marketing again, and everything, picks up momentum, when you have like all these things. And that's why systems are so important, right? It's sort of like, the map that you need to have around your business to conduct the business, right? If you don't have map, you're always in the reactive mode, and that takes a lot of energy, physically speaking. But the one that is going to cost you the most is the mental energy that you need to put every single day, because every single day seems like you're starting almost from scratch, perhaps, right? So you need to identify, in order for you to start building these systems, you need to identify what are the bottlenecks, where are things really failing at, right? Again, it's not about automations, because if you directly attach automations to your business, even without thinking about the model, then it becomes even a bigger problem, because then it's going to be really hard to manage, really hard to understand exactly, where things, fit with one another. So first is to build a system, all right, that makes sense with all of these areas. And then you use automations whenever you want to, whenever it's possible. And most of the times there's a lot of things that are possible. So you relax a bit because the system is in place and it works automatically, right? But not the other way around. And so once you have like these systems in place, tasks that will take you, I don't know how many hours, let's say 5 hours, maybe it will take you half an hour, right? Because you already know like all the steps that needs to happen in order for that specific part of one of these buckets to happen, whether there's automations or not. Okay. And by the way, when it comes to automations, there are certain things that you want to automate, most of the things most likely, but there are certain things that, although it's possible to automate, you might not want to automate for many different reasons, right? Because probably you need a little bit more control. So, for example, when speaking to clients, depending on what we're talking about, these days there's automations for all of that kind of stuff, but that's not necessarily speaking what you want to do. It depends on your business model and what you offer, and what the business is exactly. But there's certain things that you don't want to automate, necessarily speaking, right? But the systems, definitely, it's paramount for you to have a way more streamlined operation that will give you energy instead of like stealing energy from you, because energy is directly related with momentum, as I said before, right? So definitely super, super, super important. And when you have all of these things in line, then it becomes more about creating and less about hustling. And again, that's the difference between having momentum and having effort. One comes with another, but if it's only effort and the momentum is really low, then it's very, very, very difficult. And so what this means ultimately is that this will give you more freedom to, as I said before, to create as opposed to just hustle every day. And so that's why it's so important to create momentum that will give you more time in the day, that will give you more mental space, that will give you more energy to do all the other things that you need to do, and also gives you white space in your calendar for you to do whatever you need to do, because you need that space too. There's a lot of this hustling culture in this space. Um, there's some of that needs to be done, but not necessarily speaking to the extent of what you might think. So momentum also equates to freedom, and I think that's very important. So hopefully you liked it today, guys. Hopefully you had positive insights about this video in the same way that I got, and that made me think about a lot of things that happened in my past, a lot of things that I was conducting, the way that I was conducting things at that time. And I hope it helped you as well in the same way that it helped me. Okay, so I'll see you in the next one. All right, bye bye.